main theme to Halo, Combat Evolved, is one of the most recognizable pieces of video game music. Why is this so? Composer Martin O'Donnell, along with Michael Salvatore, used a combination of chanting, string orchestra, and percussion to fill out the soundscape. This opening piece in particular uses a Gregorian choir, to which both Martin and Michael, and a few other singers actually contributed their voices to. This unique combination of instruments with the alien premise of Halo led to a groundbreaking score. Both composers' use of music in the game is excellently implemented as well. They crafted the music in such a way that it could be broken up and remixed in interesting ways. The level designers could simply use these different versions to accompany the mood of the action. Regarding when or when not to use the music in Halo, O'Donnell responded, "Music is best used in the game to quicken the emotional state of the player, and it works best when used least. And that, if music is constantly playing, it tends to become a sonic wallpaper, and loses its impact when it is needed to truly enhance some of the dramatic components of the gameplay." With the iconic piece that this is, it's still rather short, clocking in at around the 2 minutes and 20-second mark. And as you can see in the sections of the music, it first starts with the main theme, and it mainly stresses this second section, having subsections up to E, and then has a few bridges in between these sections. For the instruments, like I stated in the intro, it features a combo of electronic, percussion, choir, and orchestra. You'll notice that there's a noticeable compression on all of the instruments, especially on the low end, to give them a punchy sound. The piece begins unnervingly with this electronic, dark ambience. Now this dark ambient sound effect is more atonal, while the dark pad has a more definable pitch. Now the panning is also interesting in this sound effect, as it constantly moves from the left to the right speaker, and then when the dark pad reaches this A note here, the panning ceases and the song converges to a tonal point. Now the next instrument that is added is the percussion, and it opens up to this choir right here. It also has this subsequent crash symbol later on. You can see the panning wave here. The main theme is performed by around 5 people. The composer O'Donnell mentioned he was inspired by the Beatles' Yesterday before writing this melody. For the melody itself, it's comprised of 3 phrases. The first phrase uses the notes of the E minor scale. It first presents the E as a tonic, then rises up to the perfect fourth, and then resolves back to the E again. The second phrase rises up to build tension, and finishes unresolved. Now this third phrase begins on a lower note, the B, and again uses the E minor scale. It scuttles around the E a bit before resolving back to it in the end. Again, these other voices are just other things I added to accompany the main melody. It should be noted that a single cello note is added to strengthen the E as well. So let's hear that whole section all together now. Now in section 2A, the drums fade in for one measure, which is just enough time for the vocals to fade out. The drums here are powerful and staccato and not too bass heavy. Now the mighty cellos enter by way of an octave. They're going from this low E to the high E. And then continually rises up diatonically up the E minor scale. Then up to the perfect fourth again. And repeats from there. Throughout the song, you'll see the composer try and change things up from this usual rhythm. Section B adds in the violas and violins to bring the rising build to the piece as they themselves rise. Now the violas primarily serve as counterpoint to the violins, and then much like the choir at the beginning, the violins fade away as they are introduced into this new section. Section 3A is when we see the introduction of the qawwali voice, which is an ethnic style of singing, usually found in places such as India. The melody here is not usual in terms of standard melody writing. And the cellos, at this point, are the most active. They are being in this entire song. Now I use the layering of 3 different cellos. This first one is more of the staccato. The second is the legato. And the third one is a mix of both. These top ones are the keynotes. The legato notes I used are here in the section perfect fourths, except for this one, which is a 6th, and then back down to the F to repeat again. Let's play the whole section with everything. The cellos here in this next section are back to the original motif, while the fast-moving violins sort of give this adventurous feeling. It makes me wonder how he managed to compose such a quick theme. For me, if I wanted to write a complex, fast section, I would slow the piece down and then try to figure out the melody from there. In regards to this melody, it has few repetitious parts that we see in other melodies here. You can see that in here, an additional violin is added to hit these A notes. And then in the violas, they also serve as counterpoint, the violins. They're more staccato than the violins. And then here they double with the violins. What's interesting is that an additional percussion is added to the drum groove here. It's in the right speaker. It's a nice addition to add some syncopation. And then finally we end the section and into the bridge with this snare fill. At this point the percussion, for the most part, is removed, except for this fill in the middle. The cellos provide the low-end support by striking this 4th interval. Violins play this interesting back and forth alternating notes pattern. It starts on the C and then modulates up one step to the D. And again, like previously, an additional violin is added for these higher notes. So here's the whole section, the whole bridge. Section 3B is quite similar to 3A, where it has the Koali voice back again. The cello and percussion remain the same, but violas and violins hold on this one note as a sort of rising tension, and they slowly increase in volume until this section. Here's another instance of the Koali voice. Now, section 2E definitely reminds me of more of a pirate theme in the violins in this melody. Especially when you add in the percussion. Then to add in additional tension to this violin motif, the composer decides to double them an octave higher. The second bridge is actually exactly like the first one, so we'll move on to the conclusion. As you'll begin to notice, only one cello is present in this conclusion, out of the 3 that I previously layered on. Both the cello and the percussion are back to the more simpler patterns that we saw in the beginning of the song. The choir, interestingly, returns. Again, they deliver a rising tension of sorts. Looking at the pattern, they have a really unique harmony going on. The alto voice in the middle remains the same, mostly as it continues rising up. This prevents the chord changes from sounding too abrupt. The chord progression also seems to restart at this point, and then finally reaches the final tonic note, the E, and then gradually fades away. The strings here play the exact same motif we saw near the beginning. A fascinating way to bring back old material. And then gradually fades away at the end. And then loops back to the beginning of the piece. Now for the full song playthrough. In this intro, notice the panning, like we discussed, that goes back and forth until settling down when the choir enters. And then when the drums are introduced, how the rhythm contributes to the cello pattern. How the violins and violas add tension to the already cello and percussion groove. Then question why the composer used a Koali voice technique in both this section and the next. And then finally the unique harmonies in the choir at the end. Microsoft audience at the first time Halo was premiered back in the early 2000s were stunned upon hearing this song. It's no surprise too, with the jaunty violin solos, the rhythmic percussion, and the famous cello line, the song is bound to be remembered along with the greats of music history. The choir as well is exceptionally composed to be remembered long after the gamer has put down the controller. Thank you for watching this analysis. I enjoy greatly putting together these videos and showing you the tips and tricks the great composers of the past have put into their songs. Thanks and have a glorious day.